Welcome to Streams of Income, hosted by best-selling author and entrepreneur Dr. David Powers, where we discuss streams of income, passive income, residual income, and even why there are dinosaurs and zombies in this intro. Fasten your seatbelts and get ready to dive in.
Hey everybody, welcome to the first edition of the newly revamped Passive Income Engines office hours, which has become educational hour. I don't know if it'll last an hour, but I figured I would try this format for a little while because I realize the time that works good for me to do the office hours is probably not best for most of you. And I'm judging by attendance mainly. Boris is usually able to be there because he's in a totally different time zone. And even though he's there, I'm usually catching him right when he's making dinner. And I realize that many of you, no matter which time zone you're in the US, that's still prime W-2 work time. Or you're in the office, you're home office, whatever, working, or you're picking up your kids at school. And so we're trying something new. Now, just in case you've missed the last few office hours, which I recorded just in case anybody wanted to rewatch, and that's made me really happy though, because the replays have been pretty good. And so that tells me people are wanting to watch and get some knowledge, get some education, hopefully learn some new things and some tips and things like that. But the timing of the live office hours was bad. And so what I'm going to do, just in case you've missed the last few of those, I'm going to recap some of what I've covered on the last ones so that I can move further in. So we've been talking about taxes, and I've been talking about this book here, Home Business Tax Savings Made Easy. The more you know, the less you owe. Now, this book is by Ronald Mueller, and here's the weird thing about Ronald Mueller. He wrote this book, and I actually met him at a conference for Legal Shield, which is it's a multi-level marketing type business that I used to be involved in. I don't have a lot of kind things to say about multi-level marketing businesses, but I will say this. The bigger ones bring in some amazing speakers. And because you're already in the system, so to speak, you get to go for free usually and listen to the speakers. So I met Ronald Mueller at this conference and bought a copy of his book, and amazing, fact-filled. I left with pages of notes kind of seminar. And so I had to buy the book because I couldn't write fast enough while he was talking. He talked about small business taxes. Now, the book is called Home Business Tax Savings, but the principles apply. There are some things in here that apply strictly to home-based businesses. And I understand most of you are either in a home-based business or, let's be honest, even if you're in a W-2 job, that especially means that your side hustles, your passive income, your residual income, your recurring income are home-based businesses. I'm sure some of you are working on your side hustle while you're at work, and I won't say anything further about that. I won't tell you boss either though, so don't worry. But that means anything else you do is at home. But even if you have a real office, like away from home, we're at the Starbucks, the principles still apply. So we're going to go through the book. Well, I was telling you about Ronald Mueller. Right after the seminar, I bought his book, and this one was last published in 2013, 7th edition, implying that there had been 6 other editions and that he was updating them frequently, meaning when the tax code changed, when the tax laws changed, when the principles changed, he would update it, put out a new book. Well, this is the most recent copy that I've seen, that I've been able to come across. I actually did some research on Ronald Mueller, and it would appear that he has fallen off of the face of the earth. I did a short Google search for him. I found his LinkedIn account, and there were no posts. And the last date I think that I could find referenced on his LinkedIn account was in the early 2000s. And this book was 2013. So I don't know. Maybe, just to stir up a conspiracy theory here, maybe the IRS had him whacked. That's what I'm thinking. I think he is either off grid for his own safety or the IRS had him killed. So maybe with the new administration, he'll come out of hiding and give us a new updated copy. But for now, we're going to deal with this one. Now, one of the things though that he always talks about that he likes to do with his tax tips is congressionally approved legal tax tips. I'm going to tell you things from the book. And as far as I know, everything I know about taxes, which considering the tax code is, humongous, I'm going to tell you what's in the book, but Ron is a big stickler. When I did meet him, he was a big stickler on legal things. So I'm not going to tell you anything that I know is illegal. I'm not going to tell you how to fake things. I'm not going to tell you how to make things appear like something they're not. I'm going to tell you how, though, you can use the congressionally approved legal loopholes within the tax system to make sure you don't pay any more than what you actually owe. It's all, and by congressionally approved, that's a bit of a dig at Congress, because here's the thing: a lot of the loopholes. Oh, let me go turn off that alarm real quick. That's not embarrassing at all. So, a lot of the loopholes that you'll find in the tax code were placed there by Congress so that they could take advantage of getting out of their taxes. So that means, as good tax-paying American citizens, we can also take advantage of the same ones. Sorry about that. If you noticed a little hiccup in the video, I had to pause that and go let my daughter know it's time for running practice. All right, so I'm going to read you a few things at the beginning of the book, then we'll dig in a little bit and see how far we get. So anytime I discuss tax things or investing things, I have a disclaimer. You need that just to cover yourselves legally. So if you're passing on any of these tax tips, anything like that, just do the disclaimer. Tell them, hey, I'm not a tax professional. So I'm going to read Ron's disclaimer. This publication is intended to provide accurate information in regards to the subject matters covered. All information contained in this book is deemed to be complete and accurate. However, since tax laws are subject to change and reinterpretation on a continuing basis, the author and publisher, and me, since I'm reading it, take no responsibility for the legal or tax implications of using information contained herein. The reader is advised to obtain advice and consulting from a certified tax professional who is a seasoned expert in home business tax law. That's his disclaimer. All right, so the first section, he talks about big time. There's actually, there's a foreword by Robert Allen. Robert Allen is famous because he wrote the book Multiple Streams of Income and a bunch of other business books, but that's the one I know him from the most, and which I have kind of also adopted in the business that I took over from Ryan Rieger, called Streams of Income. The S on the end of stream implying multiple. I'm pretty sure Robert's probably got the multiple and trademarked. All right, so why you can trust what's in this book. Let's see. Because by profession, I, the author, am not a tax lawyer, not a CPA, and I've never worked for the IRS. That's why I'm still able to write in plain English. So Ron Mueller was an investigative journalist. And, thinking about it that way too, he may have, who knows what he was investigating, but he may have investigated something else that got him whacked. But, out of all the criminals in the world, cartels, mafia, bad Russians, extremists, IRS agents rank up there near the top. So who knows? All right, so let's see. An understanding of home-based business tax law is not taught in most accounting schools and isn't even tested on the CPA exam. It's because it's something small. The vast majority of people are not home-based business owners. Even on a larger scale, the vast majority are not small business owners. There are a lot of small businesses and obviously owners in the U.S., but W-2 employees, I would imagine, make up the great bulk of people who are paying taxes. And so it's understandable that it wouldn't be on a tax exam, but I will say this about CPAs. Some of you probably run businesses where you need a CPA or you need an accountant, and by all means, consult them if you have one, a good one. But if you don't have a good one, there's a lot of them out there that I heard a bookkeeper friend that helps businesses get their taxes ready to give to the CPA. And she referred to CPAs and tax professionals as IRS agents. And basically meaning that their job is to follow the IRS rules and to report any infractions to the IRS. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, that's the way a lot of them are. A lot of CPAs, a lot of accountants are not going to help you find the loopholes. They're not going to help you maximize deductions. They're not going to help you get the most. What they're going to do, most tax professionals, what they're going to do is whatever is most safe for them. Although if something happened on the taxes and you were audited, something like that, they would in part be responsible and have to help you handle that. And you'd have to pay them extra for that. their job, the way they usually see it, is to not come under the radar of the IRS. And so they're going to do whatever's safe and never push the margins. Well, I'll be honest with you, as a small business owner, the margins are where you're going to make your money in the deductions and the benefits, and just maximizing all the pluses and the pros of owning a small business, and especially home-based businesses. So this first part, he's basically talking about how the taxes or paying more than you owe in taxes is not good. Congress is constantly trying to make loopholes for themselves, which we can also use. And the IRS tax code is so monstrous that pretty much nobody understands it. And it is constantly open to reinterpretation by the IRS agent. So in other words, you could do something that's in the tax code and you could still get audited. And it would be up to you to prove that it's okay in the tax code versus them having to prove you actually did something wrong. All they have to do is send you an audit letter and you are on the hook until you prove that you are innocent. Basically, the IRS system is built so that Americans are guilty until proven innocent. And you'll still end up paying a lot of time and money to do that. All right, so here's some things, though, about having a small business. So number one, have a profit intent. So you notice the word intent. That is a huge word here. It's to incentivize home-based and small businesses so that tax breaks can begin as soon as you are honestly trying to make a profit. In other words, you do not have to show a profit at first. Obviously, it doesn't seem like a real business if you're not making a profit at some point. But I'm not sure the numbers, but I heard Amazon, like the first decade, Amazon was in the hole. And now look at it. And so I've heard other stories about Uber and other big businesses that showed a huge loss. I'm talking monstrous losses because they were building infrastructure. They were buying property. In Amazon's case, they were buying warehouses in the early days to store all the books they were mailing. And now the warehouses are so much more than books, and they're the size of small cities. And so you can understand why they were showing a loss for all those years. And so you have to have a profit intent. Amazon, despite massive losses in those early years, were showing a very clear profit intent. They intended on making a profit, and they were working towards that. And so also, number two, work your business on a regular and consistent basis. So if we started a home-based business but didn't keep working it on a regular basis, we would not have a part-time business you could ramp up to full-time. And what the IRS is going to look at mainly, the way they term it, is that it's actually a business and not a hobby. If you sell one or two things on eBay every year, or I don't know, what's another good example? Let's say you write one book and it's about your grandma, and it doesn't really make much money. Writing off a bunch of deductions for that kind of stuff is not going to work. That's a hobby. You wrote the book because you wanted to, not because you had a profit intent or it was a regular and consistent business. Selling a few things on eBay here and there, having a garage sale, a one-off garage sale, that's not profit intent. That's not regular and consistent basis, because I've had a lot of garage sales. With all my kids and everything else, we've had garage sales a ton. We've sold things at flea markets a ton. And there were quite a few times we did not make profit. I guess we had the intent to make a profit, but still, that kind of stuff, it's a hobby. And so it's going to be up to you for now what you consider regular and consistent as far as that basis. I'll give you some examples, but just know that if you get audited, you're going to have to prove regularity and prove consistency. And so let me give you an example. I have a farm here where I live. We've got 10 acres under our control, own or control. And some of the things I do so that I can take the farm and all the tools, plants, seeds, animal stuff, animal feed, so that I can take those things off of my taxes. And so, actually, let me do number 3 first, and then I'll continue my farm example and cover all 3 with the farm example. And then I'll also do one that's more of a business example that's going to be closer to what most of you do. Number 3 is keep good records. Treat your small business just like a big full-time business, just like the one that you want it to be someday. All right, so the farm. Definitely have a profit intent. It is fun owning some land. It is fun having a farm, but I'm not doing anything here just to, well, with farms, they would call it a hobby if you only grew food for your family. That's a good example. That would be a hobby farm or just a family garden. They would not call that a farm business. I have a profit intent. I have plans and drawings and maps and all kinds of things, consulting that's been done to do things here on the farm to create a profit, very clear profit intent. If I got audited, I could pull out reams and reams of paper of plans and drawings and all that kind of stuff. Number two, work your business on a regular and consistent basis. There's probably not a day that goes by that we're not doing something on the farm. And that's little stuff here and there just to maintain things. But almost every Saturday, our entire family is out. We call it farm work day. Every Saturday, we are out doing the bigger stuff that requires more than one person to do, like clearing brush, planting things, prepping the grow areas, things like that. We're doing farm work. And so regular and consistent, I could easily document day by day, and I do. On my computer, I write in when I do farm things, when I do business things, and that way, if I ever get audited, which I've never have yet, despite pushing the margins with some of the deductions and things, if I ever get audited, I could print out my schedule, and right there, it's going to have color-coded. Farm stuff is all in green, obviously, on my calendar, and so all that would be color-coded, and they would see just how much I work on my farm. So that's regular and consistent. Keep good records. And so I keep tons of records. I'm a nerd about that kind of stuff, spreadsheets, records, papers, pictures. There are certain areas of the farm that we're working that I take periodic pictures of, like once a week pictures, because I want to compare things or prove things. And so, very good records. And so if you meet those three requirements, you qualify for a boatload, Ron's word, of new additional tax refunds. And so I'm actually going to stop right there with this intro, and we'll dig into some more specific stuff next week when we with the next video. But one of the things I want to tell you about that goes a long way towards establishing profit intent and making it look like a business is doing the things other than just working the business. And so with the farm, for example, I subscribe to farm magazines. In other words, I read professional trade journals about farming. That way I can stay up on new things, new techniques, new plants. There was an amazing article in a recent one about water buffaloes. And that's something that I'd kind of like to have here instead of cows because they're unique. Either water buffaloes or yaks. I would just love to have something other than cows. Unless those long hair Scottish cows, or the Scottish Highland cow, I think. Those were really awesome. They look cool. And so I wouldn't mind having one of those too, but I digress. Water buffaloes, I think the going rate for water buffalo milk right now, which is higher in protein than regular milk and more like a buttermilk kind of a consistency, $46 a gallon is what it's going for. Now you also don't get as much milk from a water buffalo, but those are pretty good prices. And it's a specialty product, which means $46 is kind of the rock bottom. If you're the only person in the area that has a water buffalo, I'm guessing I could charge double or triple that because imagine you're making cheese or something like that. And there's actually a specific type of Italian Parmesan cheese that is made from, or maybe it's a mozzarella, but there's an Italian cheese that is specifically a water buffalo cheese. And so very, very cool stuff. And could you imagine what it would look like milking a water buffalo? I mean, they're monstrous. So, that's just an example, reading from magazines, things like that. I also attend farm conferences and educational seminars. So that goes a long way towards looking like you're running a business. And not to mention the fact when I attend those, they are deductible because it's part of running the business, learning more and more. Also, professional literature, like those magazine subscriptions, that's deductible. I read a lot of farm books. Matter of fact, well, it's over there on the shelf. One of the latest ones I'm reading is how to make a full-time sustainable farm income off of 5 acres or less. And so it's a book all about that, how to arrange where you plant things, where you put the animals, how you use the waste from the animals, the water sources, everything, how to do it on 5 acres or less. And so a tax deductible book but I'm reading the book, and that also expresses that it's not just a hobby. I'm constantly learning more about it. So how you act when you run a business goes a long way towards convincing the IRS, even if you're showing losses, that it is indeed, in fact, a business. And so, it's kind of cool that I'm doing this video near the beginning of the year because many of you, first of the year, we all have goals and resolutions and things like that. And everybody jumpstarts more activity first of the year. And so as I record this, it's only February. You're still within that window to start something amazing. So I would absolutely love it if you started a business. I'm also trying to do classes on how to start your own online business. And so I'm not trying to do, I'm doing classes on and so just to encourage you, start a business. All right, so I did the farm example. What's another good example I could do that run through those things? Let's see. All right, well, I mentioned eBay earlier, and I mentioned how a lot of people that do eBay, it wouldn't count as a business. Let's talk about eBay then. And I'm not talking about what Jimmy Smith and Ryan Rieger have done with Amazon and many others. I know Chris and Travis and a lot of the others are involved in many aspects of sourcing and FBA and sales and things like that. I'm talking about, let's say, an eBay collectible business where you're not sourcing big things in quantity. You're basically selling one-off things. Like for me, for instance, I sell comic books. I specialize in comic books. Matter of fact, I used to sell a lot of collectibles in my eBay store, and it was mostly comics and a few collectibles. But recently, I liquidated pretty much all the collectibles I had listed, dropped them off at the thrift store. I let them sell them and make more money for the nonprofit that they support. And I am almost strictly back to comic books and rare books. And so how do I run that so it looks like a business? Well, number one, profit intent. You can, well, and number one, make a profit. But there are things you can do to show that you have the intent to make a profit, like trying to get the best deals on things, using discounts within eBay, running ads, things like that. Just think of anything a normal business like McDonald's or Walmart or Amazon or eBay would do to try to gain more profit. See what they do, think about what they do, and you do the same thing within your means for your business. All right, work your business on a regular and consistent basis. All right, so as far as regular and consistent, I don't list all my eBay stuff at one time, and then wait till I buy more stuff and list all that at one time. I've found the best process for me, and some of y'all that do this more professionally than me, feel free to throw in the comments what you do differently or better, and because we would all love to learn about it. What I do is I list a minimum of 3 items a week. And so it's not a huge eBay collectibles store that I run. Like I said, it's mostly comic books. But what I have found is that by listing just a low number of new items every week, it actually draws more people to my older items. I don't know exactly what's doing that, whether it's the algorithm with frequent listing, or whether, I don't know, people see the new items pop up and they click on my name and see the old stuff. But I've done experiments, I've run experiments, which shows profit intent. And my experiments show me that listing a minimum of 3 items a week increases my sales. So that's a regular and consistent listing. Another thing I do is sourcing. Now you can do this different ways if you want, but for me, I go to a lot of garage sales. I stop at every thrift store and antique store that I have the time or ability to stop at. And I'm constantly sourcing comic books that I can add value to in some way and resale. I was at one time the owner of the largest comic book collection in the Southeast United States. I'd actually had newspaper articles and everything about me because of how huge the collection I owned was. It actually was so big, we had to use a warehouse to store all the comics. And we're talking the long white boxes of comics, and there were hundreds of them. And so because of that, I issue certificates with the comics I sell. Accents getting the best of me. When I sell a comic or when I list it, it will come with a certificate of authenticity that it comes from the David Powers collection. It doesn't have to have been in my collection long, but it's coming from me, so it's coming from my collection. That increases the value of my comic because it shows provenance. Think about comic books Not like the little cartoons kids are reading. Think of comic books like artwork. I'm proving provenance. I'm showing where it came from, what collection it was a part of, and it increases the value. And I'm able to sell more and charge higher prices, which is not only well, that shows profit intent even more. But I said all that to say this: regular and consistent. I'm sourcing all the time. If I'm driving somewhere to go hiking and I pass a new thrift store or I pass one that I haven't been in a couple weeks, I will stop again. That is regular and consistent. All right, number three, keep good records. So for a lot of what I do, the records just come straight from eBay, reports, analytics, things like that. And so the records are there. I can always go back to those, but what I do is I'll save PDFs in a file, and that way, if I ever do get audited, I don't have to spend weeks trying to navigate through historical records in eBay for years past. Because if you get audited, it's probably going to be for several years back, or it will be a number of years. So they may audit you and say I don't know, this is 2025. They may audit you and say, we're auditing your taxes for 2018 through 2022, something like that. I'm just going on what I've seen happen to people I know. But I keep good records. That way I don't have to dig them up and trying to get with eBay and find records. When they send me reports, when I see analytics, I'll take screenshots, I'll save PDFs of the printouts, all that kind of stuff. And I've got tons and tons of records. I've also got my own bookkeeping system. I use QuickBooks. And so, the records are there. Probably more records and more organized than the IRS would expect from a small business owner. You've got to imagine the IRS audits. I mean, they audit a lot of people. I don't have any numbers on that, but I would imagine a lot of small businesses that the IRS goes into, they don't have an accountant, they don't have a bookkeeper. They've just got a secretary that keeps good records. My daughter's off to running practice now. See you, have fun. So it's kind of like the old stereotype of if they get audited and the IRS agent comes in and the owner just basically hands them a shoebox full of receipts, that kind of thing. If I was an auditor, I got to be honest with you, if I was an auditor, I would teach them a lesson with that. Not to be spiteful, but just if they're going to force me to go through all that crap, I would make them pay. Thinking from that point of view, I don't want an IRS agent to think that about me. I would want an IRS agent to say, wow, this guy is so organized. I doubt he's hiding anything. There's no way he could hide anything with all this transparency and all this paperwork, which is dated and organized, and boom, let's just let this guy off the hook. That's what I would want him to say about me. And so there's your lesson today. And we've only covered the first 11 pages of this book. Some of the other ones are going to go fast because we're going to talk about some checklists and things like that. And so I hope I've whetted your appetite, because even though this is about taxes at its core, to me, tax deductions and tax refunds are an additional stream of income. I know the W-2 way of thinking is that I'm going to pay in my taxes all year long. I'm going to get a big refund at the end of the year because that's what I use for my bonus for vacation, or I count on that to pay a double payment on the mortgage or whatever, or to pay off a credit card if you're doing the Dave Ramsey system. That's the W-2 way of thinking. I don't want you to think that way. Basically, if you're getting a big refund from the IRS as a W-2 employee, it means that you have loaned the IRS money all that previous year at no interest. You loan them money, and they're just giving it back to you with no interest. So as a W-2 employee, your best bet is to keep more of that money at home. As a W-2 employee, excuse me, I would rather pay a little money at tax time. I would rather for me, the threshold, I'd be thinking 1,000 or less. I would rather owe between 1,000 and zero to the IRS at the end of the year than I would get money back, because that tells me I kept more money at home. I used my money the way I felt best. I used it for investments or cryptocurrency or investing in my business or even a vacation. But loaning it to the IRS interest-free is not the way to go. Now, for me, though, it's a stream of income because I maximize the heck out of these deductions, and I always get some money back, always. I pay my taxes. I mean, I've got some things going on where taxes get taken out automatically. I get a gazillion 1099s from different folks. from different businesses. And so, I pay my taxes. Everything I get, I claim, but I maximize all these deductions and all these loopholes. And so it's a stream of income for me. That's the way I want you to think about it. I want you to think about taxes, whether it's tax savings or the refund you get if it's done right, as a stream of income. And so moving forward, that's the viewpoint I want you to have. That you're going to do as much of this as possible. And let me tell you, if you don't already have a firmly established and created small home-based business, if you don't have that, create one while we're going through this class. Just create one. 2025 will be year one of your new business. Because I promise you, when you start seeing some of these deductions that you can maximize, you're going to wish you'd done it sooner. So why not just do it now? So until the next class, I want y'all to go ahead and start thinking. Think about what's your business name going to be. Do something very general. If you don't know what you want to do something very general. I have an LLC named Powers Court Enterprises. And in my EIN number, which is the employer identification number for the IRS, is listed as consulting and other services. And so that covers me for consulting, coaching, counseling, teaching, speaking at seminars, content creation, so many things that I do. So just a very general name and a very general classification. So that's a good way to get started. You may already have something very specific you want to do though. So just jump right on that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you're looking forward to the next lessons. Hey, one more thing before we wrap up for good on this podcast. Just came out with another new book, and this is it's going to be the first in the Streams of Income Build a Business guides. And so I'm going to start putting out these smaller booklets about how to start a business doing XYZ. And so this one is about selling custom and print on demand merch online. In other words, we're talking about coming up with your own artwork, and don't let me saying that scare you away from it. It's way easier than you think, and I'll talk about that in here. But coming up with your own artwork, slogans, things like that, your own business logos, and making that available for people to buy in print on demand fashion on t-shirts, hoodies, hats, coats, aprons, coffee mugs. I mean, the vendor that I use, there's like 75 different items people can order my artwork on. And so the crazy thing is as soon as I say create your own artwork, a lot of people are like, well, I'm not sure about that. I don't use Photoshop, or I don't know how to do that. I don't either. I have a VA actually do most of my artwork. She creates the artwork for me. She does the posting for me. And I talk about that in the book, how you can come up with the business idea, come up with a theme, come up with the ideas for artwork, come up with all these cool or funny slogans and things like that, and artwork. And I just realized I said things, like sometimes my Southern comes out. And so, yeah, you'll spot that sometimes. But I'll tell you in the book how to do all that stuff way easier than you think, how to have somebody else create the artwork, somebody else do the uploading, because my goal for streams of income, multiple streams of income specifically, is that you're not just adding yet one more side hustle, one more business to an already busy life. I like things like this where you can take things that you're already doing and repurpose it and make more money off of it, especially in a passive manner, or you can start something up and pay somebody a portion of the profits to do it for you. And you're also making money mostly passive. They're doing all the work and you're sharing the money. And so I love things like that. And like, writing books, like publishing books, once it's out there, it's passive. You've done the work. So unless you're doing marketing, which you kind of do need to, unless you're doing marketing to push it, the money is passive. The thing's out there and you just get a statement every month or whenever things are selling. Really cool. So check it out. It's going to be the first in a long series of build your own business. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet. Start a business in 30 days. The Idea Factory. I'm tossing around a lot of ideas for that, but this is the first guide that's coming out in that series. Hope you enjoy.